Hello everyone. Welcome to the first edition of Manatee Cares, a new program that will be targeting the agencies, groups, and individuals that are working together to provide services to our friends and neighbors going through tough times here in Manatee County. My name is Adela Roser, and I am the Executive Director of the Community Coalition on Homelessness. I'll be hosting these programs that will give you an in-depth look at what is available in our community to assist people in crisis. On this first edition of Manatee Cares, we want to highlight an organization that is focused and dedicated to helping the homeless and the needy, the Salvation Army. Let me introduce our guests. Major Frizzell, Ethan Frizzell, and Christine Smith are joining us today. But first, I would like to say a little bit about why this program came about. The Community Coalition on Homelessness sponsors a monthly meeting called People Assisting the Homeless. And this group of agencies, individuals, volunteers from the community looks at what they can do to work and coordinate services so that we have a seamless collaboration between people providing services. This group decided we really need to get our message out to the community because more and more people are not aware of all the great things that are being done and what we are trying to work together to do. So we came together and decided that this program would be a good way to tell you about what's happening in our community. So Major Frizzell, one of the things that we notice at our PATH meetings is that we use a lot of jargon, a lot of acronyms to explain what's going on with housing, HUD programs, funding agencies, and I'd like you to do a little bit of explanation of what some of these acronyms that we commonly use are, especially when we talk about things like the COC, HUD, those kinds of things. Could you do that?
I'd be glad to. One of the issues that we've been discussing at length lately has been the housing continuum. And what we mean by a housing continuum is the opportunity for people to move from shelters into apartments and or housing within the community, and that a continuum naturally exists when people are able to increase their size of space and or housing and or the quality of housing that they have. One of the issues that we discuss in housing continuums are gaps in housing continuum, which are those places where there is not housing available, then requiring or causing a need for sheltering and or family sheltering, transitional housing, and whatnot. Also, we have the continuum of care, which many of our partners are part of, which is how do we walk with someone along the way and giving them the needs that they have, such as food or household items or medical care, which you all help with so well. And so the continuum of care wraps services around those in need, helping them move along the way until they are self-sufficient. Housing is housing and urban development. It's a government program that moves a lot of money into the community, and one that is very popular is HMIS, Homeless Management Information System, how the agencies communicate with each other around the families or those in need. So by sharing the same information, we are indeed very tuned into one another in the services that provide. So those acronyms allow us to move a bit faster, but sometimes they are confusing to the general public.
And also to me many times. Christine, I'd like to hear from you. What are the major programs that the Salvation Army has and provides for people?
The Salvation Army currently is working with members of our community through a program we refer to as the Journey of Hope. And that program is wraparound services for families and individuals within the community who are currently experiencing homelessness or at risk of experiencing homelessness. So those programs can include sheltering programs where they come and stay with us for a period of time until they're sustainable and able to live on their own. We do feeding programs where we're able to offer folks who are experiencing food insecurities the opportunity to eat with us or to shop through our food pantry and take food home to their families. We also offer crisis intervention services, and what those look like are programs that will allow us to help someone pay their rent or their electric bill. Additionally, we also offer life skills coaching workshops, and that's an opportunity for us to journey with families and individuals beyond just the basic services of food and shelter. It gives us the opportunity to help them advance positively towards social mobility and again towards sustainability.
Wow, you guys do a lot over there. And how do you staff yourselves then?
We do have a staff of about 30 permanent staff members who are professional staff, as well as case managers and resident monitors, kitchen staff, that all work together for the common goal of servicing our neighbors in need. We also have an army of volunteers that come and join us in those services and in that social ministry.
Great. What would you say, Major, is the biggest challenge for the Salvation Army today?
I think one of the things that we're looking very intensely at is the housing continuum gap. Because there are so many people in shelter and or need shelter, there's a lot of people who are living in substandard housing. And we see that in too many places: low-end motels, boarding houses, bad rental units. And in that, then there are people who end up homeless and or in a hurry to get out of homeless that don't have a secure place for their families to live, and or individuals. So one of the things that we're focusing on right now is how do we use the resources of the community as a whole, with the whole continuum of care, in order to serve families best and give them opportunities to move into housing that is stable for them, housing that they can be self-sufficient in, housing that they choose, allows a good school, transportation, health services, housing that is in a neighborhood that is safe and away from crime. And so that's one of our largest issues right now, because we find that people are staying in homeless shelters too long because there's not an affordable way to move out. And so in our combined efforts to look at the housing continuum gap, we're focusing very strongly on saying, how can the Salvation Army invest with others into housing solutions that recognizes that this is a natural reflection really of the growth of the county, and not necessarily a bad reflection on those who serve in the labor force of the county. And so balancing those truths within the community have become very important in order that we can build into the strengths of those we serve, instead of serving a vulnerability model that only says there are weak people. And yes, while there is a portion of those who are that have weaknesses that have to be dealt with, or vulnerabilities that have to be dealt with, the vast majority of those we serve actually have strengths that we want to invest into. So that housing continuum gap, along with livable wages, is that which we find most important right now, is to say, how do we provide and or find housing that matches the wages that service workers get paid within Manatee County, and or farm workers or seasonal workers, all the things that our agencies deal with. Great folks, hardworking folks often, but in a market that is very versatile, especially with the economy the way it's been.
I think this idea of affordable housing is something that we've been trying to do more educating to the community about. And it has to do with, as you say, livable wage. What would you say is a livable wage here in Manatee County?
No, it's interesting. We use University of Pennsylvania did a study recently, so we use theirs. And so for a household, a single mother with a child, a livable wage is right around $17 an hour. Most of the people that we see are not making that. So of course what they're doing, and a lot of our mothers have to, is they're working 2 or 3 jobs to get the $17 an hour equivalent. Well, of course, in that comes the difficulties of childcare and child rearing and education and those type of things. But it's right at about 17. And there's so we're using the University of Pennsylvania model and numbers, which was done recently. But most of our people are not hitting those numbers at all.
Right, and what do you see, Christine, when people are walking in your door? What is the biggest group of people, or the most common group of people that you see that are having difficulty?
I think currently we're seeing an awful lot of families coming through. Families who 3 years ago were stable and were sustainable. They had a job, they had a home. And due to the struggles of the economy and a lack of livable wages and affordable housing and all of those items combined together, they're finding now that they're needing to come and ask for help when they've never had to before. So I think the fastest growing group of folks who are in need in this community right now are families.
And I think we see it in more of a story form. I think we see it within a lot of families and neighborhoods have experienced that, as a lot of people have had to move out of their new homes or their rented homes because of foreclosure and difficult circumstances. Some of those have moved back in with family members, and a lot of people in Florida have experienced that. And then as soon as they can, they move into an apartment. And so when they're moving back into an apartment, those who normally would move into that apartment moves down, and apartment rates are up. And so there becomes a force of all those people moving out of houses back into apartments, where at the same time you have those who are trying to move up in the housing system that no longer can afford those apartments because the prices go up. And so that's where the housing continuum work that we're doing as a community is important, is to say, how do we create this space? Because I think affordable housing, unfortunately, sometimes becomes a misnomer. People think of public housing, they think of affordable housing units as set-asides, and of course what we're referring to much more is a market that creates housing that is affordable to those who are working within the market in order for the balance to maintain. And that's one thing that we haven't seen a lot of in the county, is smaller apartments or more affordable apartments being even new market-ready apartments for people to move into. And some of that is the housing bubble just shifting back and forth. And I think that as a community we can engage that conversation. So again, we're celebrating the strengths of the hardworking people in it, recognizing that there are some who definitely need affordable public housing, which is another issue, but there are some who just need some help in a market-based housing system.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we notice is that a lot of people are coming in, and I think there's a misconception about the homeless people, that they don't have a home, that they're shiftless, they're not working, etc. And what we find is everybody that comes in, and I'm sure it's the same for you, for the rental assistance program, have to show sustainability. In order to be able to sustain themselves, that's the only way we can even think about giving them rental assistance or utility assistance, because otherwise we're just throwing money away. Right. So we can only help those who can show that they're able to help themselves. Do you have a story maybe about a family that you've helped recently that would illustrate that? Yes,
we had a family and actually we're doing active parenting now classes, which is fun. And it's one that our parents in our different programs have signed up for, so we started that last night. It's a continuation of some strength-based modeling that we have. And one of the young ladies there was actually featured at Christmas. And at the time, she had 2 jobs and was going to school, and she has 2 children. And so she was there last night in the active parenting class, actually trying to learn, now that she's out from the shelter and on her own, she's volunteered to come back to get those skills to make sure that she's more resilient in a tough economy. And she's doing difficult work at a convenience store and at a body shop. It's tough work that she's doing, raising 2 children, but she's coming and saying, how do I get the skills to become more resilient in this? And so it's fun for us in the active parenting classes and classes like that to see those who've gone through our programs and come back. And actually had men in last night that are trying to reconcile with their families the same way. In order to reconcile with their families and invest money in their families, they have to go through a parenting class. And so men, we have men that are doing the same thing. And one of the great joys that we've seen this year, whereas unfortunately we're at a time where an amazing amount of people are now qualifying for food stamps, right? A lot of people who are getting that assistance don't know how to use that. And so even the Shop Smart classes, we have those who are coming regularly to learn how to use the resources that have been gifted to them to make them go further. So as all of these changes that we're seeing across the nation, and of course are politicized every day right now, but with all these changes, we're trying to say, how can we use traditional social services to have greatest social effect? So how can we teach those who are receiving, maybe not directly from us, cost as much as before because of the way the modeling is working with national policy. How can we teach them to be responsible for what they are receiving and make those gifts go further? And doing that with food pantries and the shelter and whatnot. And so classes like the active parenting class or the shopping smart class, those things have been wonderful because we see these people coming in and using their strengths to really take care of themselves. We've come away from the day where, where people come to us and say, well, it's that time of year, I'm eligible again. And we've come off that model to say, wait a minute, just as we would with financial assistance, we want to invest in your self-sufficiency, right? Not just in your need. And it's a different community model, but I think this community is one that, as compassionate as Manatee is, it's one that can embrace this and really walk alongside people in order to maximize their strengths.
And I think that's something that all the agencies are doing, is that requiring that new vision for people, that it's not a handout but a hand up type of thing. And Christine, could you say a little bit more about the shopping classes? I thought that was a really unique and exciting kind of class for people.
It is. It's a very exciting kind of class. We recognized through our food pantry program that we had a lot of families coming back and visiting us month after month. And we really felt that there was an opportunity there for us to uplift them and to help them move forward in their sustainability. So we reached out to public supermarkets and we formed a partnership with them in which they come and walk side by side with us in order to offer a series of 4 weeks of classes. In the first week of classes, participants come and they learn from Publix how to navigate through that store. Many of these folks have not shopped in a Publix store before, so they're not really comfortable or fully understanding how Publix can help them save money. So they learn how to navigate the flyer and the BOGO program and the Publix Club so that they can obtain different coupons through the mail. In our second class, Publix statewide nutritionist comes in and she shares with us how we can shop healthy on a budget. Because when you're struggling and you're on a budget for food, sometimes the cheaper processed food is much easier to purchase. So she shows us how we can still purchase those healthy items and still maintain a healthy, balanced diet with our families. In our third class, our staff puts together a week-long meal plan based on the sale items that we find in the flyer. And then someone from the Publix Aprons Cooking School, a chef, comes and does a cooking demonstration for us to share with us how easy those tips and techniques can be for feeding our families. And then finally, in our fourth class, we invite a couponing expert to come in, and she shows us what we call extreme couponing that's not so extreme. She shows us how to build couponing into our budget so that we can do that responsibly for our family. We can purchase the items we need and still leave items on the shelf for others. And it's been a wonderful program. In our first round of classes, we had 55 graduates, and in the second round of classes, we welcomed 110 graduates out of that program. So it's been a very positive experience. Additionally, out of that program, the folks have shared with us that they really enjoyed that and they really enjoyed the fellowship and the support that they got from each other. So we've welcomed them back every Tuesday night to come for couponing club, where we buy some papers and we bring in some coupons and they bring some of their own and they share and fellowship and support with each other. And we're finding it amazing that they're sharing with us each and every week that they're saving anywhere between $50 and $150 a week on their grocery bill. So it's been very successful.
Is that a class that's ongoing? So if somebody in our audience right now is interested in coming, they can come?
Absolutely. That is a class we do anticipate hosting again in the fall. So we'll be sharing some additional information about that as the time gets a little bit closer. But it is open to anyone in the community who's interested in sharing those programs with us.
Great.
It's important to note that we are actually changing the way that we intake a lot of people who are in need of assistance with the classes. Whereas we recognize that there's a lot of ways for help right now and a lot of agencies, and we all take a role. We're doing our intake so that right now, for those who are needing financial assistance, is those who are within our classes. We're trying to make sure that they're stable. Same way with the food pantry for those who are younger, is to say, if you want to use the food pantry right now, you have to show us how you're saving on your coupons, because we recognize that even in the couponing, there's a cycle there. And even although you can teach it in a month, it actually takes 2 to 3 months to get your coupon cycling to work for your food pantry. So we stay with them and make sure that they stabilize in that. But the stories, one lady shared the other day that she had saved $150 that week in couponing, and that morning when her husband got up to go to work, his truck didn't stop. And she shared that it made her feel really good that her husband said to her, "It's okay, dear. I know that you saved money in the couponing. I can use that to fix the truck." And she said that that brought such value to her within her relationship with her husband, because she was able to use what she had learned with us to get him to work, and that stabilized the family. So it is a different model of receiving people. And then there are those clients like seniors that you know, their income is not keeping up with inflation, and so for a lot of the seniors, we qualify them and say, okay, you can qualify, and now you're qualified for the year, because their situation isn't going to change, and we think that there's a place for us just to help them maintain stability, because they are strong people. It's the whole society has changed around them since they planned their retirement. So we have a wide variety of people who can come in different form or fashion, but it's not so much come once and receive all you need. It's much more come, let us work together and see how we can help you for the long term.
Is that part of the programs that you have at the shelter also, that there are programs there? Can you say some more about that?
Be glad to. So in the journey of hope, the idea is that it helps someone with their quality of life over time. So we have those who will come in, and we always do, who get 7 days for free, and then after their 7 days, a case manager can decide they can get another 7 days for free if they'd like to, depending on how they participate in the program. After that, they can decide that they want to work with us on a specific program, and if they want to work with us, for us, it's from turning point to tipping point. It's a strength-to-strength model. If they want to walk with us, then we can walk with them as they're looking for a job and those things. Even their program service fee can be rated for that. The goal being is to continue working with them until they're self-sufficient, but they have to work with us and not stay as strangers. And some people like that. Some people would rather say, you know, no thank you, I'm just here for 2 weeks, or I'm here for 3 weeks and pay a program service fee, which is fine. But others are very thankful, as I mentioned, you know, like the men in the program last night, who see this as a way they can actually reconnect to their families. And for them and for us, that's a good goal if it's best for their family for them to do that. And so that program allows that journey of hope really to stay with them right until they reach what they were hoping for.
Sounds excellent. One of the questions that we always have when we're referring people over to you is, there was a question in the past about, is there space in the Salvation Army shelter for single women? Do you want to say a little bit about what's happening there?
Yes, there is currently space in the family shelter for single women. We identified within the community that there was a growing need for a place for single women to be. And what we decided to do in order to welcome them into our programs and be able to journey with them as well is we took one of our family rooms. We have 6 suites in our family shelter, and we reserved that room specifically for single women. So there's anywhere between 4 and 6 beds, depending on the amount of women who are in the program, open for single women, and they can come and they participate in a very similar program as the families do. It's a Journey of Hope model program, and we ask them to allow us to journey with them. They meet with a case manager, they participate in life skills coaching workshops, and it's all in an effort to help them as well become sustainable as a single woman.
And candidly, with both the women and the families, as we know, there isn't enough housing for them. So 4 beds is not enough for Manatee County for women, and neither is six rooms for family. And that becomes part of that housing continuum conversation we're looking at now, is how can the Army invest the resources that have been given to us to have the greatest effect. So right now we have 6 family units in that lodge. If we were to build 12 family units outside of the lodge on another property or on the extension of the property, that would allow anywhere from 12 to 24 beds for women, which we need in the county. And the reason why we're having these conversations, and thank you for the time today, is so that we can engage the whole county to say, in the continuum, what role should we be playing? Should we be housing more veterans? Should we be housing more families? Should we be housing more women? So that we can build that which is going to have the greatest effect on a community approach, versus the Salvation Army saying, we know that we need another 12 units for families, but kind of doing it isolated doesn't share that. And within a county like Manatee that is so compassionate and so responsive, the only stewardly thing to do is to connect the community as a whole to our work as a whole, which is what you suggested at the beginning of the program. And because this community is responsive and kind, I know that will be the best answer for the long-term services.
Well, Major, you're unfortunately going to be leaving us soon in about a month, is that right?
That is right.
So, Christine, it's going to be a big responsibility for you moving forward. What do you see as your biggest challenge of moving this vision of the Salvation Army forward?
Continuing to invite the community in, really, and encourage the community to participate along with us. We've said from the very beginning that while Major Frizzell is a great visionary and he offers a wonderful source, a resource to us, really those of us who are on staff with the Salvation Army in Manatee, we're here all the time, and we are dedicated to this model of service, and we do believe in this philosophy, and we will work to carry this forward because we do know that we need this in our community. So really, it will just be a continuation of us inviting the community to come in and really share with us their thoughts, their ideas, and to continue to partner with us as we move the housing continuum forward, because we really do believe that we can make strides in this in the continuum, and we can make a difference, and that's what we're here to do.
I just want to re-emphasize that the continuum of care itself is taking someone from being totally homeless on the streets to being stably housed and maybe even independent. And all those services and service providers that you need to be able to help those wraparound services is what we're talking about today, and you being a very important one there because there are only shelters. So I want to thank you both for joining us today. This has been a wonderful session, and hopefully our audience has learned a lot about the Salvation Army and what you do and what the vision is and the need for housing in Manatee County. I hope that's been foremost in what people have seen. And I'd like to close by just, Major, last comment, what would you like the audience to know?
You know, just to share that this is a county, Manatee Cares is such an appropriate name for your show, this is a county that shows great compassion, and the agencies here fall into their roles very nicely. And as you said, the Army, we only take the role that is needed, which is a wonderful, because there are so many agencies along the way within the continuum when it comes to things like mental health and physical health and veteran services. This is a great county for those things. And I fully believe that with the current visionary leadership that we have throughout the county, with many of our partner agencies, that solutions can be at hand. I would just ask the county and its residents to be patient with us, because in a learning model, and especially in a community model, there's going to be many voices, and in many voices are many ideas, but working together, the right ideas will come out. So we invite everyone to participate, bring ideas, and be patient as the right ideas come to fruition, because we show all due respect to all the agencies and leadership that is steadfast within the county that are working on this problem. There's a great group of experts who know what they're doing, and I commend you, and we're thankful to be one partner in this overall vision.
Christine.
Well, really, I just want to leave the community with an understanding that we are here for all members of the community, and we do believe in journeying with everyone, and we appreciate the support and the focus that the community has given us and the position they've allowed us to invest in our community.
Well, thank you. And I'd like to thank Major Frizzell and Christine Smith for taking the time to share the vision, the purpose, and the programs of the Salvation Army in Manatee County. You may direct any questions that you have today about either the Major or me. Contact information will be shown after the close of this program. I want to thank you for joining us today to learn about services available to people in need in our community. We hope you'll be back for our next program on Manatee Cares. We'll be focusing on services targeted toward the young adults aged 16 to 25. And with that, I'd like to say, never forget, Manatee Cares.